Stops, launches deep. Jalen Guyton, he's got it! Touchdown Chargers! What a throw! 4 seconds left in the game, but this is likely the final play that matters. End zone wide open. What a night for Mike Williams. And the Chargers have their first lead of the night.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of ChargersCast. I am your host, Kirk Brewer. ChargersCast is a podcast by fans, for fans. And with over 40 years of Chargers fan experience, my goal is to bring you guys a unique perspective on our Los Angeles, formerly San Diego. I was a San Diego native, so I like to include that since most of their years were in San Diego. Chargers. So we've got a lot to talk about today. We are going to be reviewing the Week 4 game against the hated Kansas City Chiefs. And I'm joined again today by Andrew Loya from BoltCasa. Andrew, glad to have you here with me, buddy. Sorry Brennan couldn't make it. He's back in North Carolina. And, they're picking up the pieces from the hurricane blowing through there. So, our prayers are out to everybody back there dealing with the hurricane. I understand Brennan and his family are well, but things are kind of, a little disorganized and disheveled right now. So hopefully we will get Brennan back here soon. Really like having him with us as well. But let's get into this game, man. We weren't wrong. In fact, I think I was closest on the score. I think I had 17-13. It was 17-10. So we weren't off relative to thinking, on paper with all of our injuries, especially, even though it was a home game, that KC was probably going to get us, but it wasn't going to be a runaway. It was one of those, bless Justin's heart. We were wrong on the fact that we thought they would probably rest Justin and go with Taylor Heineke. Retrospectively, I probably wish they had done that just to give Justin more time to really get, those high ankle sprains can last a while. And if he had truly what's the equivalent of 3 weeks between games with 2 weeks off, 2 weekends off, that might have really done him well. You could see watching him play, he had a little hitch in his giddy up the whole game. So he wasn't 100%. Now you got to love him for wanting to go out there with his teammates and, rough it out to try and get the win. It's a divisional game. It's a big deal. But we have that going for us, which, Justin, stuck it out. But there's some good and there's some bad in this that I think we really want to get into. You saw it. I know you saw it because I think I snatched one of your things on your Instagram because it was so good. As far as depicting all of these, I don't know what the right term is for these fans that don't understand football, and at the first sign of adversity, they're like, oh, it's the same old Chargers. Oh, the season's over. Oh, just all of this. It's like, chill out. Just relax. Everything is fine. We're 2-2 with 13 games left. And so that part's frustrating, but there's a lot of good to unpack here. I say we start with the good.
Okay, let's do that.
Okay. And for me, that means let's start on the defensive side of the ball. Fair?
Fair enough.
I think our defense played really well. I think they kept us in that game. There were a couple lapses, which I think they've had pretty much every game. They've had like one big lapse every game. They had it in the Raider game. They had, maybe not in the Carolina game, but they definitely had the one lapse, the big lapse in the Pittsburgh game. And then they had the one lapse to the Rook on the deep ball. That was Christian Fulton who let him get behind him. That was like the big play laps. But otherwise, they're playing good. They're keeping us in games. Did you know our defense has allowed the fewest points of any defense in the league?
I did not know that.
Fewest points per game. We're getting sacks and we're getting turnovers. So they're keeping us in these games. And so I'd love to hear your thoughts, what you saw in the game. Without Joey, it's great to have that depth there that we've been talking about ever since training camp, because Joey's hurt again.
Yeah. Yeah, when it comes to the good, the defense looked good. And like you said, they definitely carried us through this game for the most part. I thought everyone positionally looked great, from the D-line, linebackers to the secondary, given there was the few plays that, we got behind on, but that's going to happen. They're a good team. But overall, it was a good showing. It was like everything that we thought Brandon Staley was going to be. Jesse Minter is all of that. And it's kind of scary because with the way that the NFL is looking, I would imagine he's going to be here at least another season, but there's definitely a chance that some teams are going to come knocking for Jesse Minter come the offseason. And you would
rumblings.
If you're watching what he's doing, boy, it's incredible. There was a video that Brett Coleman did on Bootleg, and he kind of does this edit about Jesse Minter's defense, and it's so entertaining and super cool to watch. So anyone who's watching this should go check that out. It's at Bootleg. I don't really know their full official name, but they're like the Bootleg podcast guys. But Brett Coleman, it's a super cool video. But like I said, he is all of that when it comes to just buckling down and playing this modern type of defense that is like an amoeba. Everywhere you look, you can't understand the blitzes, the coverages, the front setups with the stunts. It's creative and it's fun, and it's really showing itself on the field. We're having a ton of success with a cast that, is dealing with some injuries, and, we're not exactly we're not a team on paper necessarily that goes, oh, wow, that's a defense that's just like got all this money poured into it. We got a couple good players, but I would say we're maybe just slightly above average roster-wise on defense, but there's just a lot of great coaching.
Except our edge room.
Yeah.
When Joey's actually playing.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, with Justin Herbert, going back to the resting situation, I do wish we would have rested him too. But we also, I guess, just don't understand the degree of a high ankle sprain. Because I just saw that Micah Parson got one as well earlier in the week. And I guess he's sidelined for a pretty significant amount of time.
Yeah.
But it does send a message, and the leadership aspect of this is really cool too, because, it goes to show Justin Herbert's as a leader, anyone else on this team who's dealing with pain, I'm going to at least go out there and lead this team. So I think coming from that angle, that's really cool.
Yeah.
But it's also tough to watch because I saw so many plays in this game where it's if Justin had some type of mobility, you guys would be screwed. We'd have so much more success. And this whole conversation can really expand on the offense success and how everyone's at Greg Roman's throat right now, and the offensive production, which, sure, some of this is you could be frustrated at a couple of things, but in my opinion, and I'm going to go ahead and say this, guys, it's a lazy take. I think it's a lazy take right now to really have, guns drawn on Greg Roman. And now I'm going to pass it on to you, and I have more to add to this as we go forward, but I said what I said.
Yeah, it's one of the things I was really planning on mentioning in this game. Is kind of more as we were wrapping up. But for all those people who are already calling, Greg Roman was worse than friggin' Lombardi, when. You don't know football. Okay, I'm just going to come out and say it. You don't know football. It's great that you're fans of the Chargers. The Chargers love you to have you as fans, and they love that you buy their merch and all that stuff. But you don't know football. You need to sit back and watch football for a few more years and, if you're saying he doesn't know what he's doing, he's forgotten more football than you'll ever know. Period. The guy's a great offensive coordinator. Everywhere he's gone, his offenses have led the league in rushing, top 1, 2, 3, never out of number 5 as far as I can tell, ever out of top 5. Does he have the most dynamic passing game? That's not. He's got a passing game. The run game gets the passing. It's you either run to throw or throw to run. Okay. He runs to throw. Our play action, especially in the second half of this game, they were on Justin. They weren't buying the play action. Okay. They weren't buying it. They were shutting us down. They knew they were dominating the line of scrimmage with our banged up line. There's so much that goes into that. I appreciate these fans' passion for the game and for the team, but it just gets really frustrating when you see people just that quickly give up. It's like, no, man. In Harbaugh, we trust. Come on. We've been calling to have somebody of his caliber for ever since Marty's been gone, quite frankly. And so hang in there, man. Hang in there. There's so much ball to be played this season. And by the way, you know how many really, really smart football pundits were saying the Chargers are going to be at best maybe 9-8 this season under Harbaugh. They weren't giving Harbaugh he's going to make him 13-3 or I guess now 13-4 or 14-3 in his first season. It's a work in progress to build the roster, get the culture, all of those things. So, yeah.
I would still consider that a win and a successful season if that's what ended up happening to us this season, if we got to 8 or 9 wins. As much as a lot of people wouldn't like that, when you look at where this team was in the offseason, that's not a bad start, considering the cap situation that we inherited.
Yeah.
Guys, we're looking pretty good.
We were in cap hell.
Yeah. Yeah, and then we had to basically make a few cuts to kind of show what here's our identity going forward. This is kind of what we plan to do, and everyone's going to see it for what it is. But going back to Greg Roman, it's like none of you guys are going to sit in a room and legitimately say that in an NFL office and say that, because you don't know what you're talking about, guys. Because that was one of the first things.
Sit in the same room and out scheme him, okay? If that's what you're calling for, then get in the room and draw up the scheme.
It was one of the first things that I wrote in my notes, because when I sit there and I watch the game, I kind of, as nerdy as it sounds, is I'll have a little notepad, and it's dorky, but I'll write some things down. And truly, on the first 2 drives, I wrote down Giro's cooking. And I know a lot of people are probably watching this going, what in the world are you talking about? Dude stinks. But no, I thought it was really clever what he did with the motion. And the first one, the first play I think that I'm referring to was one where Q took a ball from the outside, and then there was another motion where we flipped it inside to Will Dissly. And then we did, I thought it was really clever because we hadn't seen anything like that all season. So my point being is there's a little wrinkle of just something that hasn't been shown. And so going forward, when we get DJ Shark in the mix, then, that's when we can really start forming some opinions, I suppose. But right now, with the supporting cast that he has, guys, it's that's what I see. I see a cast that you can only do so much with. What do you guys think is going to happen? Herbert's going to sit in shotgun, and we're just going to have what we look at who we have: QJ, Ladd, and Palmer. Who Palmer is kind of struggling. He had a couple plays this game, but he's not the Palmer of what we have seen in the past, unfortunately. But my point is we're not come on, post flag routes, these deep digs. I don't exactly see this cast doing that. And because I really picture myself okay, if I had this team, this is what we're gonna do. I don't know, guys. When DJ Shark comes back, I think the passing game will open up a little more, and I agree, and it should. But that was one of my first notes. I wasn't mad at Giro. There's some bad in here in the way that our offense performed. It is bad
execution.
But going into this game, guys, with a beat-up offensive line, Herbert with no mobility, and that's the other thing to this type of offense, that Justin Herbert being able to move and manipulate certain things is like so much to an offense. So that's just kind of where I stand on the Giro thing. I'm okay with everything that's going on with the offense. I think that there's still a lot of football to be played, and we still are missing who is supposed to be our X position. So that's where I'm at with that.
Yeah, no, that's all good observations. There's a few things I'll add on to that, which is, traditionally, if you're installing a new offense and a new defense, early on defense is usually ahead of offense.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is. And we're seeing that. We're seeing that play out right now. We've got a new defensive scheme and a new offensive scheme. The defense has been ahead of the offense all the way through camp. Okay.
Yep.
And so that there's still a work in progress. Number two, it didn't help that Justin's been out so much with the related plantar fasciitis injury. I don't believe they didn't say it was plantar fasciitis. It was related. It caused some plantar fasciitis, whatever was injured. But he missed a lot of time in training camp. Okay. And now he's not taking reps during the week with his high ankle sprain. And so I'm going to go out on a limb and say, I don't think Justin's playing as sharp as he would if he hadn't missed that time. And that's on top of a new scheme, even though they're saying Justin's a genius and he's the smartest quarterback they've ever met and he's got it down pat. There's no substitute for reps. None. Right. And then now let's throw, by the way, we lost our 2 stud bookend tackles.
And tell these people about how different Mike Williams is compared to Quentin Johnson. And, there are some similarities to Keenan and Ladd, but it's a different thing that he has been with.
Totally different. You could stand those guys side by side and their measurables. You go, those guys are almost identical. The game they play, totally different. And Q may mature over the next few years, being more of a 50-50 ball like Mike was, but that's not Q's game today. He came out of college being the short, take it and get yak. And that's his deal, period. And so guess what? Instead of doing what Staley was doing, they're using Q that way. So using what he's used to, right? DJ was the guy who's supposed to take the top off. He hasn't been there. Now, he's eligible to come back for week 5. Will he come back? Don't know the severity of his injury. Let's hope he does. So there's a lot it's not just Giro. Okay. And in fact, I see very little of it's Giro because we saw weeks 1 and 2. Okay. We had a leading rusher in the NFL putting up 130 plus yards a game. Okay. It's not just Giro. There's a bunch of factors that are going into this. And by the way, I didn't go into this game thinking we were going to have a 10-0 lead in the first half of this game. I was pleasantly surprised going, we may actually, if we can keep this close, we may have a shot at pulling this game out. But I didn't think for a second 10-0 lead was anywhere near safe. Okay. We've had 2 games in a row now where the second half we have been outplayed. So let's go ahead and get into the bad. Okay. This is a segue into the bad. 2 weeks in a row where the second half, the opposing defense dominated our offensive line. We couldn't run it. We couldn't throw it. Justin had to chuck and duck.
Yeah. And I can't remember if this stat line goes to a preseason game or if this happened to us earlier in the season. I think it was a preseason game, but just not scoring out of the first quarter is a bummer. And it sucks when we got all the way down to, close to the goal line and we just couldn't get it in. That was a pretty big bummer, but some bad here. Now,
yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I don't like to go oh, the refs decided the game, unless it's like completely, just unequivocally, oh, the refs blew a call that decided the game. But that was a bad call on the Joshua Palmer. The turf guy, got him and he fell. He rolled forward. He was not touched. The one replay showed he clearly wasn't touched. That should have been a first down. Harbaugh screwed that up, and he admitted he screwed that up. He should have thrown the red flag instead of calling a timeout. We probably would have gotten the first down and a new set of downs to go in and score there, which would have been huge. But I don't want to sit and go, oh, the refs are in the tank. That's an excuse.
Yeah, we had opportunities. This team shot themselves in the foot. Yeah. One more good thing was how nice was that toss that Herbert snuck in at the end of the game to Dobbins that Dobbins couldn't kind of secure. I think, Dobbins should be surprised because Lamar Jackson, guys, isn't making that throw. And I don't know if you guys have watched Lamar Jackson this year. He does not throw the ball as good as Justin Herbert. And that, you can call me a homer, he does not do it like Justin Herbert on a couple boots. That thing was sweet. But that was a hard catch. It sucks. But I think it was a little bit like you're learning, everyone here is learning what we all can do here. Kind of back to what you were talking about, how this whole thing's we got to get warmed up with each other. This team's got to mesh.
I don't think Dobbins thought that ball was coming to him. Man.
No, he's like, holy smokes.
How the hell did he get that ball in there? On the money in stride.
And it hurts because that's why, Chris Rim had that article, from an interview he had with him after the game that he sat in that locker room with a towel over his head upset. And I know a lot of that, his mind was probably on that play going, I should have caught that ball. But hey, man, as a fan, I'm here to tell you, like, you'll get the next one. Like, now you know what Justin can do if you just, you just be ready.
Just better always be ready. And supposedly there was a few guys, Harbaugh went around the locker room after when everybody had dispersed, and JK was one of those guys. And, he went and sat with them and heard, where they're at and assured them, this is not what we are, and we're going to get better. But, there's a lot of factors that contribute to it. Injuries are one. 2 weeks. I think you could put the second half letdowns with the Steelers and this week. You can put that on a good portion of that is injuries, because the injuries took place in the second half of the Steelers game, right? As far as losing our tackles, which is huge. I suspect I'm segueing here, but I suspect Ortiz he already did, because we had a guy starting on was it right guard? I don't even remember the guy's name now. I have to go look it up.
Mustafier. You think it's like Mustafier, that guy? Yeah, right guard. Yeah.
Yeah. Where did that guy come from? I know they signed him to the practice squad and bumped him up. I don't think they signed him off the street. But are you kidding me? A guy that never taken a starting rep in an actual NFL game with this team just gets called up, and he's the starting right guard against the Kansas City Chiefs. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, he stuck it up too.
Yeah, and so I suspect Ortiz is scouring the league and the waiver wire for some more offensive line depth, because we need it. We really need. We need the equivalent, and I think every team says this, so it's going to sound kind of cliche, but we kind of like why we went out and got Taylor Heineke. Okay. If a guy goes down, you need quality depth that at least you're going, I got a 50-50 chance here. Now, first half, these guys gave us a fighting chance.
Yeah.
So whatever KC did and whatever Pittsburgh did in the second half, we need to be able to counter that. And if that means they're bringing extra people in, I watched some of these back, and they were getting to Justin with 4-man rushes. It wasn't like they were bringing 6. Now they did. KC brought McDuffie off the edge several times, and but we got to get better at that. I was really hoping when we brought Nick Hardwick in, Nick and Phillip Rivers spent hours upon hours for years studying opponents' film and getting those blitz packages down. So Nick is probably the next best guy to Phillip Rivers to teaching Justin and this O-line how to read defensive blitzes. So I'm really hoping we start to see that start to pay off, because that has been a weakness.
And we will. I remember in the offseason how Nick was talking about Bradley, and one of the comments that he made was that they had two different styles, of like kind of how they played. And I think that has a lot to do with just like, this is what it is right now. So I think next year and the year after, like, his tutelage will pay off with these guys a little more. I don't think Bradley Bozeman's the center of the future. I think it was just a situation play.
They're probably going to draft one, I suspect, unless a really good one comes available. But our offensive line didn't play real good when Bradley Bozeman was our highest rated offensive lineman in this game.
Yeah. So let me rattle off some bad stuff here. We were 4 for 13 on third down conversions, and that seems to be a trend, unfortunately. We were 55 total rushing yards, and we averaged 2.3 yards per rush. No bueno. And then on the passing side, we had 169 yards passing, that we averaged 5.8 yards per pass, which, when you look at the run game, a depleted offensive line. And then going back to the conversation about Giro in the passing game, that's like what you're going to, that's like, it's hard to like, what are you going to do with that offense? You only have so much you can do with that cast. And until we get DJ Shark in there, that'll be in the 200-yard range, ideally. Like, that's what the expectation is. But that's where I'm also like, unfortunately understand the stat line there. And contributing to that O-line, Jamari with a 50.8 grade. Zion, poor Zion, he had a 23-point grade, 23.5.
Against Chris the whole game, man.
Sam Mustafire at 21, and then Trey Pipkins with a 60. So those guys, they stunk it up. They had a hard battle on their hands. But it is interesting because there have been conversations in the Charger community about, like, what did Jordan McFadden do? What happened? Like, where did this guy, like, how did he show up from the practice squad, the Sam Mustafire guy?
Yeah.
Weird. Don't know. Frankly, don't really care. I'm on to, the bye week because it is what it is, guys. Talking about going into this game, I mean, we played pretty darn well. We kept it competitive, and this was a game that we gave away. We should have won this game, but I think that's – we didn't get blown out. Like, what does that say about going – we're going to play them again. We'll get them next time in Arrowhead, when we can put all this together.
Yeah, I mean, we had an opportunity to win this game, and neither you nor I going into it, with the amount of injuries we had, we're thinking we were going to win it. Both you and I picked the Chiefs begrudgingly as Chargers fans, but trying to keep it real. Like I said, I did not, in my mind's eye, think, we're going to get a 10-0 lead on the Chiefs. We're going to get up early, and Mahomes is going to give us, he's going to give us some turnovers and stuff. I just... so our defense is keeping us in these games. Our offense needs to hold up their end of the bargain. Harbaugh mentioned scoring down the stretch being an issue. So that is going to be an area of emphasis that, look, we need to be able to score the whole game. We did in the first two games, and again, that's going to be that running game. Okay. The end of the game, it's that if you're wearing them down with the running game, then at that point you've imposed your will on them. We haven't been able to do that the last 2 weeks. And I think that's because this offensive line we've been trying to build, we lost our two best players. Now, I'm very optimistic we'll have Alt back for the Denver game. I don't think his injury's going to linger. He's a young guy. He's going to heal quick, probably put a brace on it. I would be shocked if you don't see him wearing a brace on that knee when he does come back, just to give it extra support. Haven't heard a lot about Rashawn's pec. They said it was a strain, not a tear, so that's good. But you need that as an offensive lineman. That's where your strength. So we'll have to just kind of wait and see as we go through the bye here. Man, I don't want to sound like negative, but if Joey can come back, great. If he can't, I'm not like worried about it. And kind of, we know we're getting Derwin back because he wasn't hurt. He was suspended. But between you and me, Andrew, I didn't miss him this game.
Joey?
No, I didn't miss Joey or Derwin.
Yeah. Okay.
Honestly, I thought our defense played just fine without Derwin.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, some people are going to argue that, the Travis Kelce wouldn't have got those plays. And it's like,
bullshit. Kelce has owned his ass. Right? Kelce has owned his ass. I don't care what anybody says. Go back and look at Kelce's stats against the Chargers. He has owned Derwin. Derwin has the highlight of dumping him. Kelce's owned him.
At one half of the other, facts. You're right. Whether you can say, in the first half, Derwin shut him out, but it's like, well, what happened in the second half because he didn't? Kelce's going to get his. And let's be honest, what is Derwin's? If you were to critique where he could grow, it's his coverage ability.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm
his game.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
I thought our safeties played good. I don't know how much Tony Jefferson got in. I didn't go look up the stats if he got some reps. I think he got I don't know if I saw him out there. I thought maybe he got a couple reps. But our safeties played good. Our corners played good with the exception of that one lapse by Christian Fulton. Like I said, it's the guys I'm looking forward to are our tackles. Those guys are critical. Joey, we've got depth there now, thank goodness. So, Joey, you take your time, brother. You get healthy. You be you to where you're like perfect. And then come back if you have to, if you can't play injured, like everybody else is playing injured. Dude, Khalil Mack's always injured. And you never know it. He never talks about it. He just plays. But we need to get our tackles back.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, and it's like really.
And DJ Chark, we really need to see him in this offense. I think he'll open it up a lot.
Yeah, that's like a missing link. We really just don't have that outside threat.
Yeah.
Not necessarily. We could try, but it's also like one of those things where we have some really good corners in this league, and we don't exactly. The offensive line was a situation, and like there's a couple of things I want to touch on real quick. Like the Troy Dye thing, when he got pump faked, that was a bummer.
Mahomes, man, and they always go for it.
I would like to. I'm gonna have faith that Junior Colson would have made that tackle and been maybe a little more disciplined. Maybe that would have been the case. So, and then with that play with Xavier Worthy, I watched that play back a couple times because I was trying to figure it out. I'm like, what happened? He got a step on Fulton, but then actually Alohi was over top, but he got dusted. When you look back at that play, he was actually supposed to be over top help. I don't know what he got drawed into earlier in the play, but long story short, he was 10 yards behind both those guys. Like, he got smoked, but he was supposed to be there for an assist. It happens. It's the fastest guy in the league right now. They've got tools, and it's going to happen.
Well, they've got one less tool.
Yeah, they got one less tool, that's for sure. But they're the type of team that just might replenish him with something else, depending on what's going on around the league, but hopefully not.
Well, if that's a topic you want to touch on real quick, because I think that topic potentially affects us as well.
Yep.
Latest and greatest today is rumor on the street is the Raiders are shopping
Devontae Adams.
Devontae Adams, Tay, I think they call him, or something like that. The guy who was whining about keep your name out of my mouth to our social team. Wouldn't that be fitting if he did end up with the Chargers? Then all of a sudden he'd be loving our social team because we got the best social people in the freaking game. Another
he's
rumor though.
in the past, he's made comments about playing. If I was on the Chargers, I would put up these numbers. He's done that in the past. He's been a little butthurt about some of the social media stuff. But at the end of the day, this is about money when it comes down to a guy like him.
I don't know if it's about money at this point. I think he wants to be involved in the offense. He wants to be the stud that he used to be, which he isn't able to be there.
Okay, well, but then there's also like, are they going to shop him in the division?
Never.
So it's like we got the Chiefs and then we got ourselves.
It's Tom Telesco. So I don't want to say never. But no, you don't shop players that you think aren't past their prime if it's a trade in your division. It's one thing if you cut them and one of your division, rivals picks them up. But along those lines, rumor on the street is Amari Cooper's contract has been reworked to where he's only counting $1.2 million against their cap this year in Cleveland, and he may be on the trade block.
What would you rather do? Would you rather have Amari Cooper giving up some draft capital, or Devontae Adams giving up draft capital and some money, like an excessive amount of money?
Cooper's a little longer in the tooth, but
and then let me add, or neither. And then we just kind of, like, at no option, we just stick out with what we have and maybe find something in the draft or in the offseason next year.
If I had the opportunity to, be Joe Ortiz and the opportunity presented itself, I would take Cooper over Devontae Adams. I think it's a short-term fix, which is what we need right now. They're going to build this team through the draft. And so it'd be a short-term fix that wouldn't necessarily cost us a lot. The draft capital, I don't think, can be a whole lot. Maybe you give them a fourth and swap fifths or something. You do something creative like that, so it's not going to be a ton of capital. Because we know Ortiz cherishes his draft capital, as he should. So yeah, if the price is right, they're able to offload him. Something's not right in the chemistry there at this point where they're thinking of getting rid of him. And he balled last year. He had a great season last year. I think he'd be a great addition. Now the question is, who are you bumping? We got Double D. He's not going anywhere because he's our punt and kick returner. You got Rice, who hasn't seen the field yet, I don't think. And you got Ladd, you got DJ Chark, and Q, and Joshua Palmer. So who's not going to be on the active roster if we brought Amari Cooper in?
I think what makes the most sense is...
Or anybody.
I think what makes the most sense is trading Joshua Palmer, because he would be up for a contract next year. And I think Joshua Palmer at his best has the potential to be a 1,000-yard receiver. He's been hurt. He's always been hurt for us. He hasn't shown up for us, but I think that kind of is more of the most likely scenario. If that were like to be a trade scenario, it would be like, I think he'd be in the package.
Well, that would be smart, is actually put him in the package as some compensation. But sorry, Josh.
Yeah.
Just saying, brother. But you probably would, if I couldn't include you in the package, then I would be shopping you around. Short-term wise, Amari's a huge step up. And Justin needs a target. I mean, he does. Especially we're seeing it when we've got injuries on the line. I've said the whole offseason and into the preseason, if that line is giving him time, I almost don't care who his receivers are, because defenses can only cover for so long. But when Justin's running for his life, especially if he's, partially immobilized, hobbling for his life,
boots.
Yeah. Then it wouldn't hurt to get a target in here that isn't going to cost us a lot. And then again, build that through the draft so you're not paying $30 million for a wide receiver. Draft a couple of these boys, groom them in the system, grow your own, some homegrown wideouts, so to speak. But that's something during this bye week, during this 2-week period here, keep our eye on is, do we bring somebody in the wideout position? Do we bolster our offensive line position? I think those are two positions that Ortiz is probably looking around right now.
Yeah, I think there will not be a hesitation to build that interior. But one thing that everybody needs to understand, that those guys aren't on the market. Anyone who's good on the interior isn't necessarily, or on the outside, like linemen are so important in the NFL. You're not going to find a lot of them unless they're aging and cost a lot of money. But those guys are worth it.
Yeah.
You know, short-term deals. Like, that's how we got Corey Linsley. He was an older guy. There not a lot of them on the market, but yeah, it's certainly something I think he will look at, because we have not seen yet what it will be like with DJ Shark. The idea is that he will, like what we talked about, make things better. But yeah, it's going to help Ladd and QJ's game, because realistically, they're not the same player, but they are more short yardage type players. I think Ladd has the capability of kind of doing a little bit of everything, but without another threat, he doesn't exactly have the complement on the field with the defense to like expand his game. I think that's where he's kind of, kind of handcuffed there a little bit. So that would help out tremendously. And then sorry about my dog.
That's all right. I thought it was mine for a second.
No.
Mine was just knocking on my door.
Hold on. Let me deal with this real quick.
Gotta love dogs, man.
Yeah.
They're family.
Okay, because we can edit that. So, okay.
Or maybe we'll leave it. We'll see.
All right. Either way. So and then, going back to like all of this, it's like this really dictates a lot of the offense. Like how, like, you can only do so much with your quarterback when you're coming up with a game plan. Like, how many times we can't put Justin Herbert under center so many times, in shotgun so many times, and then how long, what kind of plays are we going to draw up knowing he only has so much time before he's got to get that ball out with the cast that he has, painting what they can paint out there. And not to mention, he cannot run. This dude's in boots. So all these people who are out there for Giro, it's like, dude, chill out, guys. Be realistic. Literally look at the situation and act like, what would you do? And honestly, what would you do?
Well,
it's hard. It is a hard. And you're playing the Chiefs, who are well coached. They're doing this better than a lot of people historically have done this football thing. They're doing it damn good. So when you look at this situation, it's like it's a tough place to be in with the Chargers offense right now.
Yeah, well, and we know how Harbaugh builds his teams.
Mm-hmm.
He builds them from the lines out. So if you take major injuries in your line, everything propagates out from there. By the way, that's why our defense has been playing so good, is we fortified that line. Puna's playing really good, man. Fox is doing Fox's thing. Tart's, adding in there. And then our edges are playing well. Dupree got a couple sacks this weekend. Thule's Thule, that guy's like a Tasmanian devil of energy. And I mean, I don't know what we would do if we didn't get Khalil. That's probably the best thing Staley ever did for us, is get Khalil on this team, because that guy is awesome. And I don't just mean as a player, but I mean as like a leader in that locker room, a calming force in that locker room. He's seen so much ball. He's just like, hey man, we're going to come back. We're going to get back to work. I don't like to talk. I like to, show it on the field. I'm not a talker. Yeah, he's my kind of player. Don't talk about it. Don't celebrate about it. Just act like you've been there before, and go back and line up for the next snap. So, yeah.
There's a lot to be said about his availability as well.
Has he missed a game with us?
That's a great question.
I think he maybe missed a few snaps, if anything. And remember, it's not like he's not, it's not like he's Superman. He was injured with the Bears and missed almost a whole season.
Yeah.
But he's since he's joined us, man, he's been an Iron Man, and Joey's been, like just made of glass.
Joey's just kind of been showing that he is just, I don't know. I don't want to put a label on anything here, but it's like, man, like, this was supposed to be another shot for you, man. And damn, you're
fragile. I don't know what it is. He's fragile, whether it's hips or groins or hamstrings.
Always something.
Yeah, and so we're seeing the benefits of bringing Bud Dupree in unexpectedly and going, whew, okay, we have some depth.
How sick was that game plan? And I don't know. Those broadcasters, I don't know about you, but they were ticking me off in the game. But how cool was it? I don't really even know how to really describe this in the best way, so I'm going to try my best. But it was, and I don't know if we want to call these stunts, but the idea was,
it's a stunt. They're playing a game within the
how they would end up having a guy, whether it was an interior or an outside guy, eventually kind of
crisscross,
and then do like a contain on Mahomes. Did you see that when they were talking about that in the game? That was sick. I was like, oh my goodness! Like, talk about a game plan for Mahomes, and we did it so well. Because after I was seeing it, but then when the broadcasters called it out for what it was,
Romo,
then you just kept watching it, huh?
Was it Romo who was our?
I think Romo called it out, but then I just kept watching it. I'm like, oh, this is incredible. This is like really effective against Patrick Mahomes. Yeah, it was cool.
Pocket, let the interior, kind of get a push on him.
It was like they would like come inside and then but like for a brief second to get them to close in, and then they would come back out around.
Yeah, because
that's what Patrick's game is. He sits back there. He holds onto the ball. He's like being Patrick, and it worked so well. I thought that was cool.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is you got to contain him because he can get out and run too. And that's the thing that, like you've mentioned, we were missing on the offensive side with Herbert because he can run. And I think the plan has always been we're going to run him a couple times a game just to keep that threat in the defense's mind. Well, they knew he wasn't running. He had a high ankle sprain. He wasn't going anywhere. So they basically shut down the run and made us one-dimensional, pin their ears back against our inferior offensive line. And so that's, again, caved in the second half. Those are things we got to work on. Harbaugh says they're going to work on them. Harbaugh's looking at himself too. Hey, I made a couple bad plays. He's also talking about, we had our share of stupid penalties, false starts, all that stuff on the offense as well.
9 penalties, 51 yards.
Yeah, and so, those pre-snap penalties, Harbaugh's like, that's coaching. Okay, that's on us. We got to coach them up better. Well, you and I both know, it's coaching, but it's also in the heat of the moment, those guys having their head like in the moment in the game and not just drifting for that second and getting that stupid penalty. And, the refs are, they're not perfect. I'll just leave it at that. But we got a lot of work to do in this bye. Harbaugh said they're going to work. In fact, they're supposed to have a practice tomorrow. So it's not just everybody like completely 100% rest up for a week. They're actually having a practice tomorrow. I'm sure it's going to be a pretty easy practice. They definitely don't want to have any injuries.
Snap count day. We're going to get the snap count down.
Yeah. So that you're freaking, instead of counting sheep, you're doing snap counts in your sleep. Mm-hmm. Well, and that's the other part too, right? Supposedly Justin was trying to, mix up his snap count to, keep the defense from teeing off so much on him. Well, guess what? You got a makeshift line. You're messing up your offensive line probably more than you're messing up the defense. So just so many contributing factors. At the end of the day, you got to trust the offense will catch up with the defense. Hopefully the defense continues to improve so that they continue to keep us in games, but even more than they already are, which, by the way, going back to the start of this season, I think Herbert was some crazy number. When opponents scored less than 20 points against us, Herbert had some crazy stat of
he was like 28 or like 22-8 he was winning 80% of his games in that.
More than that, Andrew. I think it was like crazy high, like 90. It was like,
okay.
If we kept him less than 20, it was almost a guaranteed win. It was that lopsided. Well, not when your offense is decimated, obviously. It was a game we could have won. I don't know if we should say we should have won, but we definitely could have won, especially considering all of the backups we had filling in roster spots. So those are things we should be optimistic about. You get those starters back in those positions, we have a much better chance. Not guaranteed, but much better chance we pull that game out.
It's such a hard football game to win when you really unpack all of the circumstances that the roster and the Chargers were dealing with going into this game. But I also think that that's where, like, I couldn't imagine what these players were thinking. Like, they were close to winning this football game, you know? So I think that was a big part emotionally of, like, the frustration with Herbert on the sideline, because Herbert's been here for about 5 years now, and he's seen what these Chiefs are about from all the way back when they had Tyreek to today. And doing as good as we did, considering the circumstances, I'm like, you know, people are upset, but it's like, guys, that's not a bad showing, because we had problems. I'll put it this way. I think a lot of other quarterbacks wouldn't have kept this game this close. So Justin Herbert's a stud, absolute stud, a true leader. And that's like the other thing too, is like, talk about if being able to move a little bit more really complements QJ and Ladd on their speed, you know. He doesn't exactly have a guy that can play, jump ball necessarily. So it was
we were that close.
That close, guys.
We were that close. A reception here, Josh Palmer roll. You know, if Josh had kept his feet there, there was that missed pass that was a tight end screen that Justin was under pressure to.
Yeah. I forgot who it was.
Not to Disley, our other boy.
Was it Hurst?
Yeah, to Hurst. Dude, he would have had 30, 35, 40 yards. I mean, it was wide open, but Justin couldn't get enough mustard on it. So I would love to sit down and have a beer and a brisket with Justin and find out exactly why he was beating his helmet on the bench. He didn't elaborate on that when the press asked him about it. He just said, you know, something about...
I wouldn't call that a highlight.
Yeah, he would call it a highlight. But it's nice to see him showing, because he keeps his emotions pretty close to his vest, to let some of those emotions out. But I would be curious, you know, is it, God damn it, we lost another one to the Chiefs and we were this close. God damn it, I risked my ankle to play this game and we had a chance. And we didn't pull it out. God damn it, my line keeps having too many penalties. I would just, without it getting public, you know, because clearly he doesn't want to call anybody out if it was a player related thing.
Wouldn't either.
Yeah. Why was he letting those emotions out at that point? Clearly he was frustrated with how the game turned out.
I think the future's bright, guys. When you look at how they performed and what they were able to do with the limited resources they had, the future's bright. And I think that's, you know, I know I'm kind of repeating here, but that hurts. That hurts, but we're going to play them again, and there's a lot more football to be played. This bye week's going to be super important. And when you brought up Slater earlier, yeah, let's hope he's okay, because that was kind of one of the knocks that they had on Slater coming out of the draft was his short arms. So having that pec issue is going to really hinder his game, I think. But I don't know if he's actually what work he has had done. But yeah, let's hope that he can come back 100%.
Yeah, well, yeah, let's hope it truly is a strain. There's a torn muscle tissue in there. Like I said, I'm pretty optimistic we'll have Alt back for the Denver game. So yeah, we'll be back next week to talk about how things have, gone through the bye and any news coming out of, Bolt's territory. And then we'll preview the Donkey game. That's a road game.
I'm not sure.
In Denver, I believe. Denver plays the Raiders this weekend. We're all 2-2. Chiefs are 4-0.
Three-way tie.
Three-way tie at 2-2. So
in Denver.
Yeah. It's we're just sitting here in the middle of the pack right now at 2-2, and there's 13 games left in the season. So there's a lot to play for, a lot to be optimistic about. And Harbaugh, we trust they'll get this thing pointed, strongly in the right direction. I think Mentor's defense is only going to continue to get better as long as we can keep the bulk of our roster healthy. Everybody has injuries too. I hate to go, it's because of our injuries. It's when you get a bunch of them all at once. You get one guy go down here, one guy go down there, you work through it. You have 5 guys go down, and they're all like first-round picks. It's a little different.
Yeah.
So let's get healthy through this bye. Like I said, we'll be back next week to give you our take on what we're hearing coming through the bye, who's coming back. Maybe hopefully we'll have some news on that, and going to be playing in the Denver game and preview that Denver game. So any last thoughts, Andrew, as we wrap up this edition?
Nope, I feel good about it.
Yeah, I think we covered everything. Sorry, folks, if we were a little bit repetitive on some of this stuff. But all is far from lost. It's early in the season. We're the Chargers, man. We're like the only team in NFL history that started 0-4 and made it to Super Bowl, or made it to the playoffs, pardon me. The 92 Chargers under Bobby Ross went 0-4, went on a 12-game winning streak, and made the playoffs. So stranger things have happened, and we've got an incredibly good coach and his supporting staff. So don't jump off this. Don't jump off the bandwagon after 4 weeks and 2 losses. So that's it for this edition of ChargersCast. Thanks for hanging with us. We will be back next week. Do me a favor, if you haven't already done it or it's your first time checking us out, go down below, give us a like, throw some comments out there. Love to get your comments. Love knowing folks are enjoying these things. Got some really cool comments this week from last week's podcast, some really positive feedback. So really, really appreciate that from our fellow Chargers fans. And we'll keep coming back and sharing these things with you. Also subscribe, and that way you'll get notifications when new pods drop. And then last but not least, if you're on Instagram, go check out Andrew. He's on Instagram as BoltCasa. Some really cool content. You guys are going to love it. And we're at the same place we always are, ChargersCast, whether it's on YouTube or on Instagram. And those are the main places. We do also post this on Spotify, and I try to keep up on that other place, Facebook, but not as religiously. So probably don't go there. This is the place to be, YouTube and Instagram. All right, man. Andrew, thanks, brother. And we will see you guys next week.
Herbert stops, launches deep. Jalen Guyton, he's got it! Touchdown Chargers! What a throw! 4 seconds left in the game, but this is likely the final play that matters. End zone wide open. What a night for Mike Williams. And the Chargers have their first lead